Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. This is a absolutely beautiful day. We're about to get some rain up in Arkansas, where I live. Hopefully, we'll be enjoying it. That's one reason I'm coming early today. Usually, I speak about 9 o'clock on Shabbat. This morning I'll speak about 8 because we're expecting some heavy storms and we're looking forward to seeing the weather. Hopefully it won't do any more damage to the roofs this time, but we'll take what we get. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for letting me have the privilege of coming into your home or your computer or your screen, whichever you're using, in order to discuss the wondrous things, the wonderful things of the Torah, of the Creator of the universe, of the Sabbath. We get this privilege every week because of the way the Holy One has designed creation. We get this privilege every week of enjoying, basking in, being refreshed by, being awakened by the Sabbath, the day He has blessed and the day He has made holy. So welcome to Good Sabbath to you all. If you're joining us, please put your name down in the place where you are. Leave a little comment in the comment section. I'll try to get back with you. If you have a prayer request, if you have a question or a comment you'd like to make, feel free to do that. But this is our time together to just enjoy our Creator, enjoy the life that He has given to us, how precious it is to have a time on this earth, to be able to enjoy its beauty, the magnificence of the creation, the magnificence of the opportunity we have to get to know Him and our Creator, that is, and know one another and learn from the lessons of mortal life, the lessons we will need to know in the world to come, in the Messianic kingdom that precedes the world to come, and then the world to come that follows when every day is Shabbat, when it is Yom Shekalo Shabbat, everything is Sabbath. Today, we are in the 14th subdivision of Torah. It is Exodus 6:2 through Exodus 9:37. But at the end, basically, of chapter 35, excuse me. So we're at a season of time in the second book of Torah, of Exodus, when the narrative is getting, well, let's just say, very interesting. I hope you would agree with that. The narrative of this grand story is rising and swelling with us. We are reaching crescendos that we've never seen before. And so we're going to be at a time of really awakening our spirits. Hopefully this will not be just a time you sleepily look around and say, it's another Sabbath. No, these seasons, this is our grand redemption story that's being told. And it begins very quietly. Moshe has had a bad day. His first bad day as a prophet of the Holy One. He was 80 years old when he was called. He really apparently didn't have a whole lot of connection with the Holy One as far as we can tell. There are no recorded God encounters. There's no discussion. He didn't seem to have been a man of prayer before he got called from the backside of the desert. And suddenly he's a novice or a neophyte. He's a ball lost in high weeds when it comes to this. He's going to get better. He's going to have another 40 years of walking day by day, interacting with the Creator of the universe in ways that will set a pattern that we should emulate and follow, to learn how to overcome the distractions of the world and the distractions of our own flesh. I mean, Moshe had that, and we see them play their way out over the next 40 years as he begins to mature. Even though he was 80 when he was called, he was not spiritually mature. He was only physically. His body may have been mature. So here we are. Moshe has had his first bad day as a prophet. And the bad day was that he got everybody's hopes up. He got his own hopes up. He listened to what the Holy One had said. He took it as if it was going to take place immediately and quickly and beautifully, in the way that there would be no resistance, there would be no issues that the Holy One had told him there would be, but he didn't really hear that part. We a lot of times do that with the wisdom that is given to us by the Holy One. he tells us it's going to have great resistance, and there will be great issues and great developments that have to take place. But we only hear the end result. We only hear the promise that comes at the end. And that's kind of where Moshe had been, it appears. And he had definitely taken the elders of Israel, Bnei Israel, and the people, the common people who were out crying out under their burden of slavery. He had taken them down his pathway, almost of an idealistic approach. That I'll just go in, and Aaron and I will just go tell Pharaoh that to shalach ami, let my people go, or send my people out, as it would more logically and literally translated. It doesn't happen that way. You don't just get to declare stuff and then it automatically just happens. What happens is you need to walk it out, and you need to walk with the Holy One, and every step of the way to overcome the resistance and to bring about and stay steadfast, and stay with patience, and stay with faithfulness into the calling and the mission, and walk it out through the trials and through the troubles. That's the real issue of emunah, learning this wonderful thing of what you call it in English, faith. But it's so much deeper than that. It involves a level of consciousness of the Creator of the universe and His plan, of understanding He's worthy and good and trustworthy, and then to say, in light of that, this is how I will behave. And if He does what I want Him to do, wonderful. And if He does it over a period of time, wonderful. And if He doesn't do it at all in my lifetime, I am convinced it will happen in the next lifetime or the next lifetime, and it will be wonderful. That is emunah, not a demanding of our own way, but a surrender and a rejoicing and embracing of His way. So Moshe is having to learn that process. And he, at the end of last week, he went to Pharaoh. He and Aaron went to Pharaoh, and they said, "Shalach ami, let my people go." And Pharaoh says, "What? No, no, I won't do that." And he says, "Well, but our God says, let our people go." And he said, "I don't know your God. I don't know Him. If I did know Him, I wouldn't let you go." That's not the way this whole system works. I have no inclination to follow your prophetic discourse here. You've got to overcome this resistance. And so Aaron and Moshe were sort of stumped. They didn't have anything to do. They went home, and Moshe had his first bad day, and it was a bad audience. And he went home, and the problem is Pharaoh didn't just stop by saying no. He said, "As a matter of fact, you guys must be too unoccupied. You don't have enough to do. So what we'll do is we'll double your workload, and we'll keep the quota the same, and we'll tell everybody not to give you straw, and you go get your own to make your bricks in these building projects we got going on." And so we have a horrible day. And then after that, the taskmasters of the Hebrew people, the leader, the gang leaders or the group leaders of the Hebrews, they came out and says it's impossible, and it's your fault. You did this. You didn't make it better. You made it worse. Well, that's a bad day. That's a bad prophetic day. You ever had a bad prophetic day? Or even a bad day when you're just trying to do good. You're just trying to do something right. You get the resistance. Well, that's what Moshe had. This is his first major test of training here to be. Is he going to be steadfast? Is he going to be faithful? Is he going to have emunah, or is he just going to want to decree and to deliver and speak things and go on about his business, and hopefully God will back him up? What is it? What is it? What does it mean to be a prophet? What does it mean to carry this burden of the Holy One's plan? This delight in the Holy One's goodness and the wisdom of His plan, but the burden of the day-by-day acting out, walking out of the plan. That's where we are. Well, I call this Parsha the Parsha of Pharaoh's hard heart. We will see it work its way out and how it plays for the next 2 weeks. This week, in Parsha Va'era, we begin to be introduced to Pharaoh's hard heart. The heart that is hardened. There are actually 3 different adjectives that are used in Torah to describe his heart at different times. The same, all in English are translated as hard, hardened, or hard, and that process is. But the heart of Pharaoh is 3 things that develop. He's kasha. He is like a resistance channel that you have to pass through. Hard passage a hard road. The actual word kasha is used basically to describe the process of the way in which a baby comes through the birth canal and is birthed, the tight places, the squeezing, the difficult trauma to the body of both the mother and the baby that comes out. Pharaoh's heart is like that. He's going to produce something, but it's not going to come easy. It's not going to come quickly. It's not going to come painlessly for him or for the people around him or for the thing that he's trying to birth, which in this case is Bnei Israel, the great nation that the Holy One has promised would come forth from the loins of Abraham, from the loins of Yitzhak, from the loins of Yaakov. And so we have this first thing that Pharaoh's heart is hardened in the sense of being kasha. And the second level at which his heart is hardened, and we'll see this develop this week, is that his heart is hardened kavod. He's going to be, the Hebrew word is usually translated as glory, but that's a strange concept to modern English. In modern English, it would mean heavy. His heart is heavy. And I don't mean heavy from the standpoint of being burdened or weighed down. I mean, he thinks it's heavy, it's mighty, it's powerful, it demands attention because it fills the room. It's arrogance, we would call it in English probably, or he has this sense that his heart is what matters, his desires, his emotions, his feelings, what he thinks, what he feels, what he wants is what really matters. It carries the weight, the kavod. And so we have Pharaoh is not only has a heart that is kasha and a great form of resistance that is fighting back against the struggle that's going on, but he also has a sense that his will should be done, and his thoughts are right, and his position is correct, and it isn't about anything other than him. And well, that's the kavod heart, and it's also in English called a hard heart. And then the third kind of hardness of his heart is the Khazak form of hardness. It's not really hardness at all. It means strength, and the Holy One is going to do this to Pharaoh. He's going to strengthen his heart so that he can withstand up to the maximum to prove what the Holy One needs to have proved, to do what the Holy One needs to have done. And when it comes all to the end of it, he has said that he's going to do this. The Holy One told Moshe he was going to do this. Moshe just didn't listen. He didn't want to get that part. He just heard the part about, I'm going to set my people for him, deliver them. Well, Moshe is in this state. He doesn't know what's waiting for him. He doesn't know how hard Pharaoh's heart's going to be. He doesn't know how hard this is going to be. This whole deliverance mode of operation that he's been called to do at 80 years old. He doesn't know how difficult and how challenging and how much of a duration of time he's going to have to deal with. Well, here we are at that stage. We're kind of like that. Did we realize what's in store? This requires patience. The kingdom of heaven requires patience. In tribulation, patience through difficult times, challenges, obstinate people, circumstances that will make you shiver and quiver in your boots. And to stand strong and keep trusting the Holy One and keep walking in the things and the instructions that he's given you and doing what he says to do. And that's how we get through to the deliverance mode. Well, so here we are with Pharaoh, the season of the hard heart. Here's the question, though. Just keep this in mind as we go on. I kind of an opening question to be able to get our thoughts going this morning. What do you get when you cross a hard heart with a mighty hand? Well, this is going to be our story. A hard heart crossed with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. That's what's going to develop in this process. We are going to we are in episode number 2. This is his introduction to episode number 2 of the Great Nation Building Chronicles. As he told Abraham, the Holy One that is, told Abraham back in Genesis 12, I will make of you a great nation, a goy gadol. Well, that's going to happen, and it's going to happen on our watch as we're going through Parsha Va'era and into Parsha Bo next week. But this great nation building is actually going to continue on forever, and it's still going on for that matter. But the foundations will be laid in the Va'era and Beshalach. Now, so we've got this idea of Pharaoh, his hardened heart, the Holy One with his mighty hand. And I need to talk to you a little bit about the mighty hand so that you don't misunderstand. The Holy One, you know, some people have a mighty hand, but they can't control it. You've seen people who just flail, but they're really strong. I mean, I've dealt with people who have mental disability sometimes, and sometimes they're under influence of drugs or under the influence of forces of unclean spirits, and when they just flail, and they hit. If they hit you, they have a strong hand. But that's not the kind of strong hand the Holy One has. The Holy One has a strong hand like a precise surgeon. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows exactly how much force to exert and how much to withhold, how much to hold back. The Holy One holds back so much more force than he exerts. That is good to know, because if he ever exerted the force that he could upon us, everything would be crushed. Everything would be filled with who he is and his strength. But he deliberately holds back, and he only releases the amount of strength, force necessary to accomplish the kingdom goal and let humanity continue, let the ecosystem prosper. And that is the beautiful thing about the strong hand, is not just forcefully strong, it is also strong in wisdom. And so the Yad Khazak, the mighty hand, the strong hand of the Holy One, is not in any way a cruel instrument used to hurt or punish. It is a creator's tool. It is a artisan's repertoire, something to build and bring something beautiful to bear. It is what he applies to your life. Sometimes you feel he is very powerful and very strong because his hand is heavy upon you, but his hand could be so much heavier. His hand could be so much heavier upon you or your family, your children, your loved ones, your spouse, your neighbor. He withholds more than he ever exercises with regard to his strength. Well, this is the episode 2, the second section of the Great Nation Building Chronicles. Last week in Parsha Shemot, we discussed the foundations and things like that he was going to build upon. But I want to talk now about the issue of what's happening in phase 2, or episode 2. And what's happening in episode 2 is the law of sowing and reaping is having its effect. It happens multiple times every year. But there are certain seasons of the year in which we begin to see whatever we have sown, whatever a nation has sown, whatever a people has sown, whatever a family has sown, whatever an individual has sown into the world begins to come back at them. I mean, the Eastern religions used to call this karma, but it's something different. It's just reaping what you have sown. And that's the whole biblical kingdom. The way the ecosystem of earth and heaven have been set up is that what we sow, that we will also reap. Well, what has Egypt sown? Now, back in the days of Joseph, when Joseph came, despite some questions about buying him in a slave market and then forcing him to do labor in Potiphar's house and then false accusations made against him and placing him in prison, other than that, they treated him pretty good. And so they treated the seed of Abraham pretty well. They blessed him, and once they realized the treasure that they had and the gifting upon that has followed his life, the blessings of the Holy One followed his life, they began to treat him well. And Pharaoh, the first Pharaoh that we ever dealt with in Joseph's story, actually brought him into his palace and made him the second in command. He blessed Joseph. He blessed the seed of Abraham. What happened as a result? You know what happened. He reaped what he sowed. He received back multiple versions of the blessing that he gave to Joseph. He received it back, and his people enjoyed the fruit of that. As long as there was a blessing of the seed of Abraham going on. This goes back to Genesis 12. And those who bless you, I will bless. And those who curse you, I will put under extreme limitations and burdens, and that's what he said, and that's what's happening. So now we're in the second generations and the third generations and then multiple generations, and one king arises who doesn't even know Joseph, doesn't want to know his story, is not interested in that process, just wants to, he let his paranoia roll. So last week we saw that he is not blessing Bnei Israel. He is cursing Bnei Israel, putting under limitations, death decrees, genocidal mania going on, and he's stirring race hatred against the Hebrew people in his land, stirring it, and actually engaging the Egyptians in the command to kill Hebrew babies and throw them in the Nile. Well, the whole nation is now in a genocidal rage against the Hebrew people. Well, that's not a good thing. What do you think is the harvest? What do you reap whenever you do that? We're about to find out. He's about to find out. And next week we'll see the culmination of it when a hard heart meets a strong, mighty hand. Well, we have the law sowing and reaping in effect, and this is one of those seasons of the year. I don't want you to just think this is a story we're talking about Pharaoh. This is your story as well. How are you treating the sons and daughters of the covenant? How are you thinking about them? What are your thoughts toward them? What's your attitude toward them? Do you think you are superior to them? More knowledge than the Hebrew people, than the Jewish people are? More wise, more scripturally bound, more spiritual? Or do you think are you? And then do you therefore mock and condemn, for instance, even their interpretations of the Torah or their teachings on the Torah, the Talmud? Do you call it demonic? I mean, do you understand that what you sow? I'm not trying to warn you. I'm just trying to let you understand this is the way the system works. If you're going to think yourself smarter, have the hard heart toward Bnei Israel and toward the Jewish people, the present manifestation of that, then what you're going to find is you're going to reap the whirlwind of what you sow. It's not God's going to punish you. You sowed this, and it naturally must come back. That's the ecosystem plan. So, warning to you, think back to what you've sown. There are tares in your field, and those tares are coming along with the heart. There will be a time when we separate, but this is not the time. Just from this point forward, if you re-sow, if you're sowing anything in conversations, in meditations, in interactions, in transactions with the world, make sure that you're blessing the people of Bnei Israel and blessing the Holy One and his plan, as opposed to exalting your own knowledge, exalting your own position, your own theology, your own doctrines, your own ideology, your own politics, your own philosophies. This is the issue. Sowing and reaping is on, and it's in effect, and the consequences of bad sowing are some really bad reaping. All right. I want to therefore kind of get us into a mode of Shabbat, of this Sabbath in particular, and what he's going to try to say to us in this time by taking you to Psalm 95. The psalmist has spoken in many ways at different times, in ways that are they're to be meditated on. They're not just to be read, or they're not to be studied as doctrine or theology. They are words that have heavenly import, that allow you to meditate, think about them, cogitate on them, begin to process the implications of them. So Psalm 95 is one I've chosen for this day, and you'll remember why, or you'll know why when we get to the last verse I'm going to read, which is in verse 8 of Psalm 95. But here's how it starts, and I want to read it to you. It starts out within the Hebrew phrase, a beautiful meditative phrase, Leku leranana Adonai, Leku leranana Adonai, Leku leranana Adonai. What are we saying? What is this? What is this meditation phrase? It is, come, oh come, let us sing to the Holy One. Oh come, let us sing to the Holy One. Now you see why this is a meditative phrase. I mean, it introduces a meditative process, actually a structure or a protocol of meditation to you. Oh come, let us sing unto the Holy One. Let us declare, let us melody, get in rhythm, get in tune with the great sounds of heaven. Okay, so that we have that. Come, let us sing unto the Holy One. Let us shout joyfully to who? Who is he? Who is this one that has the strong hand that is going to meet the one with the hard heart, whether it be you or whether it be Pharaoh? Who is this one? He is the rock of our Yeshua. He is the rock of our salvation. He is the foundation stone upon which all of salvation and deliverance and help in this world, intervention by heaven in this world will be based. He is that, and here he is. Let us rejoice and shout joyfully to the rock of our salvation. It says, let us come before, in English it says him, or his presence. In Hebrew it's panim, and literally you translate his faces. How many faces does the Holy One have? I mean, I realize we're using anthropomorphisms. We're projecting some form of humanity prophetically or poetically upon him. But the idea is it's symbolic of something. He has multiple facets of his personality and his persona. So let us come before his faces. Let's come before all the facets of who he is and do what? With thanksgiving. Be todah. Be todah. Let us come before and be thankful and give thanks before his faces. Now, this is a meditative protocol, but it's also a beautiful way of waking up the message of the Spirit in this day. So let us come before his faces with thanksgiving. Let us shout joyfully to him with zimrot, with melodies that are plucked on instruments, like the stringed instruments. And we don't just hum or sing. We actually play. We hear sounds, a sound of heaven, and we get in tune with that process, and we sing along with it. For the Holy One is El Gadol. We are now beginning to see one of these aspects of who he is. He is El Gadol. He is great sovereign, great God, as some English people would call it. Great master, great authority figure over all the earth. He is El Gadol, a great God, or a great sovereign, great leader. And Melech Gadol, he is a king of goodness, a good king. He is the king of goodness. Above all the Elohim, above all those who are other authorities in the world, all of those natural, political, governmental, spiritually attuned, organizational heads, he is greater than all those. He is to be prioritized. He is to be served. He is to be honored far above all them. Biado, in his hand are the deep places of the earth. In his hand, Biado. His hand are the deep places, and the delight, the heights of the hills, the beauty of the mountains are his. His yam, hayam, the sea. We're taking back to creation now, Creation Week, and he created the waters that separated them from the land, dry land, in day 3 of creation. Hayam is his, for he made it, he structured it, he built it. His hands, his tender, gentle sculptors, artisans, creators' hands made the seas. Now, if you meditate on the seas, think about the seas and the waves coming to the shore, and the sound and the froth and the tides, and they go in, they go out. This is who he is and what he does. And then it says, and his hands formed the dry land. That's what we came from. It's the dry land. And it says, oh, come, let us worship. Let us shaka. Let us lower ourselves, humble ourselves in his presence. And kara. Let us also kara. English, I think it says, and bow down. And it means to kneel the way you would kneel if you were walking in the mountains and you came upon a mountain stream. You get down on your hands and knees and you put your face in the water and you drink from the water. Come, let us drink from the fountain of who he is. Come, let us bow, humble ourselves before him, and take of what he has to offer and drink it in, like one who would kneel before a stream in the mountains. Let us barak, let us kneel as a camel to be either loaded or unloaded, as a beast of burden who understands that we're either whatever the will of the Father is, if we would be put under a load and given something to carry, or whether we would have our load removed from us. Whatever that is, let us kneel in that submission factor before our Holy One, and let him do as he pleases to us. For we are the people of his pasture. We are the people that he feeds, that he provides for in this ecosystem. And we are the flock, biado, the flock of his hand, the zon that's on Beado, his hands. Now, that gets us to the verse I wanted to focus on for our meditations and our discussions. Today, Hayom, if you hear his voice, if you shema, if the sound of his voice are resonating to you, today, if you hear his voice, harden not your heart. Today, if you hear his voice, if you're in the resonance factor, if you're catching the sounds of the creator of the universe's creative message coming across, and his plan of redemption, his plan for restoration, his plan for hope, and his calling to greatness that is upon you, if you're hearing it, then don't harden your heart. Don't be like Pharaoh and harden your heart. Now, this is the Kasha version of harden. He wants to tell us, he wants to speak to us this Va'era Shabbat about listening to the right voices, and about when you hear the things of the Holy One, don't bow up, don't back, and don't just rush forward. Let that message soak into your spirit and begin to meditate on it and begin to flow with it. Today, if you hear his voice, harden not, kasha not your heart. Don't make it have to go through the birth canal. We said that's what kasha means. It's the same process of having the baby drop through the birth canal and go through the labor stages and the squeezing and the trauma that takes place before the actual birth that takes effect. Don't make it be like that. Don't make it, when you hear the words of the Holy One, don't make it be like that. Don't be like Pharaoh, who says, I'm not going to do that. I don't know who you are. I don't trust you. I don't understand you. He is our maker, and go through the Psalm 95 awakening process. All right. We are in the season of churning rapids and a raging river. Just imagine that we are now in this deliverance mode. The Holy One is going to deliver us, his people, from bondage. He is going to take us out of Mitzvah, out of Egypt. He's going to take us to the promised land. But it's right now we're in the raging rapids and the churning river. And Moshe is there, and he's depressed, and he's sad, and the people are mad at him, and he feels like a failure, and he doesn't even know why he was called, because he's forgotten that this is a long game, an end game, not an immediate gratification game. And so in his kind of what I see as a sort of a pity party, he's there, and the Holy One comes to visit him. And last week, as the week ended, the Parsha of Shemot ended, the Holy One came to visit him. I love this. He came to visit Moshe, his novice prophet, who was sulking in his room, as it may be, in his chambers, shaking his head, saying, what do I think I'm doing? Why in the world did I agree to this? Or whatever he was thinking to himself. And the Holy One comes to visit him and says, now you will see, which is a form of the verb ra'ah, by the way, which we're going to get va'era, the word that we're going to use to title this parsha. Before he gets to that, last week we finished by saying, now you will see what I will do with Pharaoh. What will happen when a hard heart meets a mighty hand? And so the journey that we're talking about is not for the faint of heart, but it is for those who are hungry for emunah, who wish to bow down and let him put upon us, on our shoulders and our hearts, whatever he wishes us to carry, and let us take off of our heart and off of our shoulders, the things that we were never made to carry, born to carry in the first place. The story line is going to proceed as this. He's going to begin this week's parsha by saying, and I appeared, the Holy One continuing this conversation with Moshe when he told him, now you will see what I will do with Pharaoh. He is going to continue that conversation with him by saying, and I appeared to Avram, to Yitzhak, and Yaakov as El Shaddai. I don't know what English Bibles, they translate it various things, the mighty God, the almighty God, whatever they want to translate El Shaddai as. But it's a fascinating Hebrew phrase. And the Shaddai aspect has been interpreted in many ways, but the sages tell us that the focus is on the die at the end, Shaddai. The die at the end, the verb root of die, means to say enough. Enough. Die. Enough. And the whole idea of God as he has presented himself to Abram, at least as they saw him. Now, God has actually presented himself to them in many forms, in many ways, and gone into and used the technical name of Yod He Vav He with the but they didn't catch all that. He can say many things, but we only catch certain things. We only see what we want to see. And so the Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov only saw him as El Shaddai. Whatever he called himself, whatever he did, however he behaved, they saw him as the one who said enough. He set the boundaries. And that's the thing about what the Holy One did at creation. At creation, the Holy One set boundaries. Water, your water. Blood, your blood. Earth, dirt, sand, your earth, dirt, or sand. You're not lice. Okay? Now are you getting the idea? Wild predators, you stay in the jungle and the forest. That is your ecosystem. That is your habitat. Enough. Don't go into the pasture lands. Don't go into the cities. Don't go into the populated areas. That boundary. Enough. El Shaddai. He sets the boundaries. He sets everything in order in such a way that it can coexist without too much overlap, without flowing and blurring the lines. Species is this. Species is that. A cat is not a dog. A horse is not an ox. These things are set in motion, and horses behave like horses do, and talk like horses do, or make noises like horses do. And so these are the things he set in motion. He set the die. He set the enough lines. And that the Holy One made himself known, and the patriarchs were able to see him in that tomb. So they realized he's the one who set the sea where it was, and the land where it was, and made blood, but made water, and never the two shall cross. Water, wine, not the two shall be the same. But there is another way, another face, another facet of who Holy One is. It says, though I set these things in place for the order and the structure of society, when the grand plan of redemption and restoration requires it, I will transcend those boundaries that I set, and water will become blood, and sand will become lice. And creatures that were made and their habitat has always been in the swamp or the marshy areas, amphibious creatures, frogs, serpents, lizards, turtles, snapping turtles, the things that live in that marshy area, not enough come forth, and they come into the cities and the plains. And same thing with wild predators, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, I know, lion, tiger, leopards, and all kinds of creatures like that come out of the. They have a boundary, they have a place, but now they're coming out of those boundaries. Because the Holy One says, I am beyond the God of the boundaries. I'm the God beyond the boundaries. I'm the God that takes all things that you think are norms, all things you think are given, and I can transcend that because I made it. And I will do it, but not just for the sake of a fun day, not just to show off, because I am bringing about a grand plan. And when the grand plan requires it, I will blur the boundaries, destroy the boundaries, at least temporarily. Again, he's a strong hand, but he's a measured, carefully, surgically precise hand. For instance, when he turned the water into blood, he did it for 7 days. He only did it in Egypt. He did it in all fresh water. He did it beyond natural ways. But whenever it became blood, it only lasted for 7 days, and he changed it. He could have kept it going. He could have destroyed the planet. He certainly could have destroyed Egypt completely in that one oath, one sign. But that was not his purpose, and that was not his way, and that's not the way he does things. So he doesn't blur the lines. I won't go into climate change issue, but it was a climate change issue at that stage. And now this whole idea, but he always measures it carefully, and he always knows when to stop for the sake of his grand plan of redemption and restoration for creation. So the Holy One had presented himself as all he was to the patriarch, but they only saw They only could see him as El Shaddai, the one who says enough and sets boundaries and lives within those boundaries and lets people live within those boundaries. Well, he says, I'm going to, I am something else though. I am, and then he gives Moshe this kind of a course on his personality. He says, I am, and again, the tetragrammaton, Yod, He, Vav, He. I am not going to get into the pronunciation game with you. I don't think it's a worthwhile enterprise. It's not about a pronunciation, it's about a character and a set of attributes. And so he said, I am Yod He Vav He. In English, it's usually, or Hebrew, it's usually called Adonai or Hashem. But basically, it is the essence of who he is. He says, I am Adonai. And though I only was seen, manifested by the prophet, by the patriarchs as El Shaddai, I'm more than that. I'm about to show you how much more than that. Show Pharaoh how much more than that I am. So that's where we go from that. So what is he about to do? Is he about to have a big war with Pharaoh? Is this about spiritual warfare? He's going to have this great climactic battle of titans where the Holy One clashes with the strongest man on earth. If you believe that, then you don't understand that the Holy One created Pharaoh and he could breathe and take him out. I mean, this is not a fight of equals. This is not a fight of anything close to. This is not a fight. This is he's giving proofs of who he is. He's giving proofs of who he is. So let's read a little bit about what he actually has to say in Exodus chapter 6, verse 2 and following. I want to say the blessing, at least the first line, the blessing of the house. Open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth, but do not hide your commandments from us. Our souls cry out for your judgments at all times. How can a young man keep his way pure? By living according to your Torah. For your Torah is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our paths. I'm going to end with that. Okay, so Exodus chapter 6, verse 2. And the Holy One spoke to Moshe and said to him, I am Yod He Vav He. I was seen by Abraham and Yitzhak and Yaakov as El Shaddai, God Almighty, it says in the New King James Version. But by my name, Yod He Vav He, by my character, my attributes, my greater attributes than just enough, God, I was not known to them. I have also established my covenant, my brit, my eternal protocols of interaction with them, to give them the land of Canaan and the land of their pilgrimage, in which they were strangers. So he mentions the brit. Moshe was not alive during that period of time. So he's now reminding Moshe of things that were in his spiritual DNA, but not in his real natural memory. So I cut this covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan and the land of their pilgrimage as where they were strangers. And in 6:5 it says, and I've heard the groaning, I've shemad the groaning of Bnei Israel when the Egyptians put them in bondage. And I have remembered, brought to the forefront of my mind and focus and complete cognition on the covenant that I made with them. And that is bringing about what's about to happen. The outcry has come to his ears, and his spirit is, all things are moved within him. He's going beyond the enough for the sake of this remembrance of the covenant and the hearing of the outcries. That's what moves him in this process. He says, therefore, say to Bnei Israel, I am Adonai, I am Yod He Vav He, I am Hashem, however you wish to pronounce it. It doesn't bother me. Other people may get upset about it, but it doesn't bother me. My question, do you know who you're talking about? Do you understand who he's saying now he is? He's God beyond boundaries, beyond limitations, beyond restrictions. The only thing that restricts him is his own goodness. And his own goodness can transcend all the things that you think are unshakable objects, unbreakable objects, immovable objects. He can break through those challenges that seem impossible to us or not to him. He says, this is then what I will do. He's going to give 8 promises, 8 declarations of what his intentions are. And he is basically as a courtier coming to a young maiden. I use the illustration or the metaphor. He's coming and saying, this is what my intentions concerning this young woman. What are his intentions concerning Bnei Israel? What are his intentions concerning you? What are his intentions? What do you think they are? Well, here's what they are. I will bring you out. Hoseti. I will make you spring forth like a shoot, like a plant, like a branch, like a sprout off of Egypt. You're going to come springing out of there as a life force that has the fruit of reproduction and life and ecosystem contributions to it. I will bring you forth from under the burdens of the Egyptians. Are you under any Egyptian burdens? Yes, you are. Western culture is basically Egypt and Western culture are pretty much the same. A little bit of difference in religion, a little bit of difference in philosophy, but basically you get the same idea. It's all about the flesh, and it's all about the pseudo-intellect, what we can think. We think, therefore we are, and we want, therefore we do, because we want with our flesh. Well, that is the whole Western culture. That was all of Egyptian culture, and you carry the burdens of that from the time you were born. Unless you were constantly immersed in the covenant and covenant people who were walking in the Spirit, in the Ruach of the Holy One and His Torah, then your focus was upon what can I do that makes me feel good? What can I do that satisfies my longings? What can I do that makes my opinions seem right in my own eyes? What can I do to educate myself, to make myself more important, to make myself feel better about myself, improve my self-image? Those are the things. What can I do to express my emotions? What can I do to express my creativity? Whatever it takes to make me feel good about life. That's the Egyptian burdens that you carry. Well, he says, I'm coming to bring you out of that. You have a life in you that is far greater than your bucket list of things that you want in your flesh. It's far better and more powerful than your matrix of opinions, philosophies, ideologies, and political theories. It is so much bigger than that. This is the ultimate. You can connect with the eternal plan of the Holy One for all of creation and for mankind and for you and for your bloodline individually. I'm coming to deliver you from the burdens of the Egyptians. Do you want to be out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, of the Western culture? Well, that's a first decision you have to make. I mean, it's nice to look at Pharaoh as being the object of all this, but he's more saying to us, all of us, if you hear his voice, don't harden your heart. Don't let it be that way. Don't say, no, I'm holding on to my opinions. I'm holding on to my philosophy. I'm holding on to my ideology. I'm holding on to my desires, my political theories. I'm holding on to my offenses and my sense of history and how it's unfair and unjust and all the social injustice, pain that I feel and outrage that I feel. I want to hold on to that. That's valuable to me. Well, that's Western culture. And he says, I want to take you out from under that burden. That's what I'm going to do to my people. I'm going to take them out of that burden, as well as this caving to the flesh. I got to have something. I got to have that red, as Esau was said. I got to have that red stuff. I got to have that stuff that makes me that tastes good. That whets my appetite, whether it be food or whether it be sexuality or whether it be some form of other pleasurable activities, entertainment, recreation, sports, whatever. Any kind of theater or drama or forum activities and things that make you feel good about yourself. That is the things that I want you to feel good about who you are in the kingdom, not who you are in this earth. This I will take you out. This is promise number one. I will take you out. I will bring you out. I will hoseti. I will make you as a sprout coming forth out of that, from those burdens of the Egyptians. And this is I will rescue you from your bondage. I will actually set you free from the chains that under which you're held, the limitations under which you live and act and think and speak, the vocabulary that you're stuck with, because that's what you've been hearing and repeating, the false narratives that you're being fed, the emotions that is being pumped into you, and you're just responding with the same emotion. I think that's most of what our emotions are. Someone tells us how we're supposed to feel. Be outraged about this. Be happy about that. Well, no, that's not the way emotions are supposed to work. Emotions are supposed to tell you how your relationship with the Holy One is. And if you have excessive fleshly emotions, you know you've got a real problem with your spiritual relationship with the Creator of the universe. Because I will rescue you from that. I'll take you and set you free from that. And I will redeem you. I will ga'al you in Hebrew. Ga'alti is the Hebrew verb and it's used here. I will come as a kinsman redeemer. And I will bring you out of your low estate and put you in the state that you should have, the right place you have, where you can be fruitful and where you can produce and where you can be joyful and be who you were created to be and do what you were created to do. I will guide you. These are the first three of the promises. And I will do that with an outstretched arm and with great, English we see judgments. That process. Next, in 6:7. Fourth, I will take you as my people. I will, like a bridegroom takes a bride. I will, in dramatic, beautiful form, I will claim you as my own. I will relish you, cherish you, delight in you as my people. And I will be unto you as an Elohim, as a God, as a sovereign, the ultimate authority, the ultimate good, the ultimate the director and choreographer and sculptor and scriptwriter of your life. I will be that to you. Now, these are the promises that we recite at Passover. These are the promises the Holy One's making. And here's Moshe in his depression hearing these first four promises and saying, well, it sounds much better. I think he's building the idea back up. But he's going to go on. The Holy One's not through with his promises. In 6:8, he says, and I will bring you into the land that I swore to give to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and Yaakov. And I will bring you into the land, and I will give it to you. I'll bring you. You're actually going to physically go back to that land. First, it starts in your head. It starts in your heart, to where you're reconnecting with this great beacon of the landing strip of the kingdom of heaven on the earth, which is in Eretz Israel. I will bring you back to the land, and then I will give it to you. Natati. I will place it within your stewardship, like a sharecropper. You're not going to have it owned, but we're going to own it together as a husband and wife team, or as a covenant partner team. We're going to co-labor, working this land of Canaan, this land of Eretz Israel, the land of the landing strip of the kingdom of heaven. We're going to co-manage this and co-labor with this until it produces light and joy and hope and wisdom for all the earth. I will give it to you as a heritage. I will establish it for you and your family, and it will be generational, cross-generational. Those who are of your bloodline, those who come and join themselves to your family, will indeed have access to use this land as the deployment center, as the distribution center for the wisdom of the Holy One. Those are good promises. That's the rest of the story that we read about, that we talk about the end of the Passover Haggadah, when there is a future to be done, this great reconciliation, restoration, regathering that takes place of the people, and the reconnection with the land and the purpose and the function for which we are supposed to be in that land. And so Moshe then went, and he was now apparently over his funk, over his depression. I'm reading somewhat into the story. Just will go along with me for the sake of our discussion and our story. But he goes and he tells the children of Israel those 8 promises that the Holy One gave. Wow, stunning, inspirational promises. But here's the problem. As he goes, he tells them these things. They did not shema him. They did not hear him. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your heart. But they did not hear him because of anguish of spirit and cruel bondage. 2 things, 2 factors combine to keep them from being able to receive and embrace the greatest promises that you could ever hear. This is betrothal level promises, betrothal of the people, and this is the bridegroom has spoken over us. This is his intentions concerning us as his chosen one. And he how do you hear that and not hear that? How do you not receive that? Well, there's certain 2 things that'll stop you, and the first one is anguish of soul. Soul is nefesh, and it's mind, will, and emotions. Anguish of mind, anguish of will, anguish of emotions. We have our own thing going on down here. We have our own sense of what's right and what's wrong. We have our own sense of what's fair and unfair. We have our own sense of what's just and unjust. We have our own sense of what's moral and what would be pleasing to us and what would not be pleasing to us. These are the things. He says this is going to keep you, if you have and want to hold on really tightly to that matrix of things that you hold on to that way, then that's going to keep you from hearing these promises and receiving and embracing them and walking in them and walking them out. Ouch, I don't want that. But there's even another thing. There's a secondary factor, a second restriction or a limitation that keeps us from hearing the promises, and that is cruel bondage. What are we addicted to in this world? What are we addicted to as far as thought? What are we addicted to? Certain mindsets or philosophies or ethnocentric positions, historical or non-historical or imagined or vain or real? Whatever they are we addicted? Are we caught up with that so that we just can't let go of it? We can't let go of the offenses. We can't let go of the sense that somehow this will make us who we are, that we should celebrate this. And I hope you go back to Psalm 95 and see none of that's to be celebrated. We have none of that. Our ethnicity is not to be celebrated. We don't take pride in our ethnicity. What do we got to do with that? Or are any of the things that are of our desires or our delights or our choices or even of our physical programming, how we're programmed to do things? We don't take delight in that. We take delight in the Holy One, and we take delight in His plan and design, not just for us individually, but also for all of creation and the ecosystem that He's designed and the world to come. So we have these two things that stop us. How are you doing on that? Is my question to all of us. Are you able to hear these promises? Are you able to imagine a life beyond the boundaries, the limits? A life beyond the limitations and the restrictions that our society, our culture, our own life, even sometimes our own family and what it's done to us, or what our own ethnicity, the people, the talking heads of our ethnicity or our culture or our society or our political parties or our governments have laid out for us, beyond the scientific community, the education community, the entertainment industry. Those, they have put these burdens on us and become like cruel bondage to us because we believe that nonsense. We buy into it, and we actually let it attach to our soul and our hearts in ways that we don't want to let it go. Well, the great plan of the Holy One is better than that, bigger than that. He has so much more in store for us than any of these things that we think will make us happy or will make us right in this process. So whenever Moshe spoke to the people, there were these two obstructing factors, and those obstructing factors were unfortunately too much for them at that moment. The Holy One's not giving up, not by any stretch of imagination. He has a strong hand, and He knows He has a strong hand. He knows what it's going to take to awaken them as well as to awaken Pharaoh. There's two things going on. One, He's dealing with Pharaoh, but most importantly, He's dealing with you and with me. He's dealing with Bnei Israel in the text and the Peshat of the story. But right now, in the ways we study Torah, He's dealing with your heart. This is a matter of the heart. And are you going to continue with a hard heart? You say, I don't have a hard heart. Well, watch your behavior. Look how you think. The litmus test is how you feel about the land of Israel and the people of Israel and the Torah of Israel, and how you feel then about their relationship and how they should interact with the rest of the world. Not as a judgment factor, but as a sense of purpose and mission and destiny. Do you see the beauty of what the Holy One has done? Are you willing to bless what the Holy One has done and how He has set up the world, or would you rather have your own theology running? Are you heart of heart theologically, doctrinally? Are you heart of heart philosophically? Are you heart of heart ideologically? Are you heart of heart relationally with regard to people? Do you judge them? Do you look at them and see in critical eye? Or do you see, okay, this is what we have to work with. Now how can we begin to introduce the wisdom and the plan of the Holy One responsibly, without speaking everything we think we know, saying it in ways that they can receive and hear? He's been trying to tell us. I told Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov my name, my character, my attributes. They didn't hear that. They just heard that I was the God of boundaries. Well, here we are. So he says, now the Holy One comes to Moshe again. And he says, okay, go and tell Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, Shalach Ami. Do it again. Do it again. Don't give up on the first try. Don't think that somehow, it's not about, it's like sometimes when you have a nail and you have a board and you have a hammer, sometimes you really get a good blow and you hit that nail on the head one time, it goes right into. Sometimes you got to hit it a few times when you get into a knot or some hardwood. Well, that's where we are. There's a hardwood going on. So hit again, hit it again, hit it again. Hit it strategically. Hit it just right enough without breaking the nail of the board, bending the nail or breaking the board. Go and tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the children go, or send the children out of Israel. And Moshe spoke before the Holy One, and he said, Bnei Israel has not heeded me. They didn't shema me. The children of Israel, the people that I was sent to, they don't want to listen to me. They can't hear from me. So why on earth would Pharaoh? Now, actually, how then shall Pharaoh heed me? And then he uses another excuse. For I am of uncircumcised lips. Apparently, I don't talk plain. I don't mean that I stutter. I think a lot of times we take there's some sort of a physical disability on Moshe's part. It is like, I can't say these things and make them make sense. They don't come out in a way that people can receive them. Do you have that? Ever had that problem? You want to say what's in the heart of the Holy One. You want to speak it in a way that will tenderize the heart and yet inspire and encourage and empower. But somehow when it comes out of the mouth, it just doesn't seem to carry the weight of the glory of the Holy One. And therefore it isn't received well. It's received as if that was some sort of a blow, or they resist like Pharaoh did. Well, Moshe is saying, I can't make these things clear. There's something blocking, obstructing my mouth or something, because I just can't make anybody hear what I'm trying to say, what you told me I'm supposed to say. Well, I hope you understand. We are mostly living lives trying to get a circumcision of the lips to where our words are pure tone. Our words are the sweetness of the beauty of the voice and the heart of the Holy One emanating forth in the earth. It is a long-time goal. It is a end-game struggle to learn how to keep our flesh, our attitudes, and our emotions, and our belief systems out of what we're saying, and to be a good conduit of the Holy One's true tone and pure message. He says, I'm a man of uncircumcised lips. And then the Holy One spoke to Moshe and Aharon. He says, I'm going to give you another. I'm going to team this up with Moshe and Aaron again. He gave them a mitzvah for the children of Israel. A mitzvah, commandment, it says in English. He'd already given them an instruction to do this back at the burning bush. And now he's going to come back and he's going to, I'm going to elevate it. I'm going to call it a mitzvah. And what is a mitzvah? We English, we think command. And we think in terms of law, and we think in terms of decrees. And that's not what a mitzvah is. And the Hebrew word mitzvah means that I am going to take you and grab you by the hand, and we're going to do this together. We're going to join. What you're going to say is what I would say. What you're going to do is what I would do. And you're going to have me there with you to do this. We're going to join together. The idea of zav, or mitzvah, is the idea of joining together and flowing together as one. So he says to Moshe and Aaron, this is going to elevate just beyond an instruction or a guideline. I want to tell you, we're going to do this together. Mitzvah, and all mitzvah are that way. All the commandments, as we read them in English. Such a westernized version of the idea of the way the Holy One works and the way he intends to employ us. And he wants to use the instructions that he's given. He wants us to elevate them to mitzvot. I will do what you will do. Like Yeshua said, I only do what I see my Father doing. That which I speak, it's not my words, it's not my ideas, it's what was given to me by the Father to speak. Mitzvah it. Will you let God make this an elevation day? Today, when you shema, when you hear his voice, will you let it become as a mitzvah in you? And I say, okay, I'm not doing this on my own to please God or to earn something or to earn a reward or to avoid punishment or to avoid hell. I'm not doing this for any of those reasons. I'm doing this because this is what he's doing. And we are becoming, he is my God. I am his beloved. And we are going to walk through this and do this together. I'm going to do what I see him do and hear what I hear him saying and speak what I hear him telling me to say. And only that. So he elevates it to a mitzvah. This is a mitzvah for the children of Israel and to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. Well, that's a good introduction. We see what's going to happen next, obviously, is a series of interactions where Moshe keeps softening. Actually, it's hard. He thinks he's going to soften the heart of Pharaoh by the way he's going to do things. But here's what happens. The first thing is the great crocodile encounter. Now, in the English Bibles, it says that Moshe went in before Pharaoh, and your English Bible said he threw down his rod, and it became a serpent. Well, the word is tanin in Hebrew, and there was a time he did lay down his rod, and it first happened in Horeb. Secondly, it repeated itself when he went to see the elders before this whole thing ever started in early parts of Exodus 5, and later parts of Exodus 5. But in this time, this particular occurrence, he's not going to the children of Israel to prove his authority or his direction or his blessing from the Holy One. He's going to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh understands Pharaoh things. And Pharaoh understands crocodiles. So what happens when Moshe throws down his rod this time is it turns into a crocodile, which is, of course, a symbol for Egyptian power. And the Pharaoh himself is termed that great crocodile. And so now we have this issue. So the Pharaoh now says, how will I respond to this? Today, if you hear his voice. And so he says to his magicians, to them, he says, oh, can you do that? And they throw down their sticks and they become crocodiles as well. Whoop-de-doo. You just filled the whole courtyard with crocodiles. That's a great day. But anyway, you see how it's actually becoming a joke, and that's what the Holy One's going to do to Pharaoh. Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. I will make him make a fool of himself in front of his people. I will make his people realize what he is not. He is not some kind of a god. He is not some sort of a superpower. He is just a man who is caught up in his own ego, his own narcissism, and his own sense of self-importance. And I'm going to show how foolish he is. I'm show his vanity. So that's what happens with the crocodiles. And so the Moshe's rod, of course, the crocodile that was Moshe's rod, eats up all the other crocodiles. That should be a message to you there, Pharaoh, of the hard heart. But it isn't in that regard. So he still says, I won't let him go. Next thing is the lines, the Holy One allows the lines to be blurred. And what was water becomes blood. Whoa, that's not the God of order. That's something he's transcending that, and he's proving to and that sign, he's proving to Pharaoh that he can go beyond anything Pharaoh could ever hope to think about doing, or any of Pharaoh's gods could ever or would ever think of doing. He is a force to be reckoned with beyond imagination. Well, if you receive this first sign is the harbinger of all the others. Because what's going to happen, once you make water, fresh water, turn into blood all through a land, all through the marshes, all through the cities, and all the context, and all the jungles, and all these areas, then what you're going to do is upset the ecosystem so greatly that all of the lines that were blurred will become blurred. For what's going to happen next, obviously after the blood is in the marshes and everywhere else, but in the marshes and the swamp creatures, their natural habitat, they can't drink, their habitat has been disturbed, so they begin to come out. So the next thing you'll see is these, in English we see frogs, in Hebrew it's sephardim, and it just means creatures from the swamp, and it involves alligators and crocodiles and snakes and serpents and turtles and reptiles of all varieties, amphibian things coming forth. And they have no habitat because the blood in the water has polluted the water, so they come forth into the cities and they become where they shouldn't be, where they cross the boundary lines in that process. And that has its effects, and that's the first time Pharaoh realizes he's really in deep trouble here and he needs to ask for some help. But he's also still too hard-hearted, too arrogant to do anything more than take that help on a temporary basis and try to use it as a hudna, as a temporary ceasefire where he can go back and re-strengthen, reposition. So the next thing that happens is, we're going to see the swarms, the predators will come in. In English it says flies. Arov, it's swarms. The tradition of the Hebrews is that it was wild predators from the jungle, the lions, the tigers, the bears, the leopards, all the creatures of the jungle that are predators and carnivores. Their place is all dried up. They don't have any any of the feeding places they would normally have, so they come into the territory as well. The lines are blurred again. When that happens, of course, you see the earth actually begins to change, and the earth turns into lice. The ground becomes lice itself. It doesn't happen, but it does. And when that happens, we see other things begin to take place. We see that the livestock, what's happened is, the boundaries say that whenever you have an ecosystem, it has its own microorganisms, its own parasites, its own pathogens. And the people in that ecosystem, or the creatures in that ecosystem, develop an immunity and antibody to those things, and so they don't usually break out. But when you take those, whether it be people or whether it be species, and you take them out of their natural habitat and they become an invasive species in another habitat, then the microorganisms that were on the lions, the tigers, the bears, the alligators, the whatever, those things that had been peacefully residing there, the parasites, those things get out and they get in the livestock, in the domesticated livestock, or in people. You see immediately there's a plague, there is a pestilence, there is an outbreak of things. We've seen it so many times in history when new populations migrate and they bring with them things that were not necessarily killing them, but do kill people who have no immunity built up whatsoever to them. It's by virtue of contact. It's not by virtue of evil intent necessarily, just by virtue of contact. Well, you see that take place, and then all the lines are going to be blurred. We're even going to see the lines between water and fire, or ice and fire, blurred, and they're going to come together out of the same cloud. And you see how the Holy One is blurring the lines. The Holy One is saying to us and to Pharaoh, I am more than the God of the boundaries. I'm more of the God of the enough. I am the God of whatever it takes to set my people free, whatever it takes to let my people become who they were created to be, take them where they're supposed to be, and empower them, enable them to do what they were created to do. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end my discussion and our time together there on that thought. Where has the Holy One brought you today on this special Sabbath day? On this day when we are to rejoice in our King, rejoice in the beauty of what He has done. What is stopping you from rejoicing in His beauty? What is holding you back, and what things make you angry or offended or upset or worried or anxious or greedy or lustful or gluttonous? What are the things that are working on your flesh, appetites, urges? You're working on your emotions. What has got you under bondage of cruelty, of bondage of the will, the mind, and the emotions? What's got you there? Because He's saying today, if you've heard my voice and the promises I'm making and the plan that I've expanded to you and told you about, don't harden your heart. Don't make it like a birth canal that's hard to push through and causes trauma to everybody concerned. Don't make it as if it's an offense to your plan and to your will and to your ways. Don't make it as if it's a kavod, violation to you. Don't consider it to be a burden that the Holy One has put upon you. And it interferes with your freedom to be selfish. Don't look at it in the standpoint of that which is making you weak. He's making you strong. Khazak, Yad, Khazak. A good, strong heart that can do His will, do His work, and do His plans. Well, Shabbat Shalom to you all. Good Sabbath, and we will see you next week, hopefully back at the Biblical Lifestyle Center. Today I'm up in our family holdings up in Arkansas, and we have been enjoying a great time up here. But next week, hopefully we'll be back in the regular rhythm and routine of things. Maybe we'll have a camera that will allow us to be in the main sanctuary with all the folks. And if not, we'll be back here in front of my computer and talking to you again about this beautiful thing, this beautiful wisdom source, this beautiful fountain of revelation called the Torah. And we'll be enjoying Shabbat together. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.